I think so far it's just the four of us.
Yep, I see someone is entering the room. Looks like Yolanda. So yeah, everybody, as you are entering the room, if you wouldn't mind, because we do want to start close to as time as possible, if everybody in the chat could put in there really short, simple, and sweet what your business is or what you want it to be. Are you in business or not? So landscaping, yes or no. And then the third thing is, what do you want out of this presentation today? So if you can start throwing that in the chat, I'm going to try when we speak to make it personal to people in the room as much as I can. So if you can start doing that as people are entering, I'm going to be taking notes. And then when we get started, again, I can reference more specifically to the people who are here. So if you all can start doing that as you're coming in, just start throwing in the chat what your business is or want it to be. Are you in business, yes or no? And then what do you want out of the class today? So awesome. And then also our host will be making you all panelists. And what that really does is it allows you to be on camera if you like. I like to see faces. And it's easier to ask questions and chat if you like as well. So as you're entering the room, when the host makes you panelist, if you like to be able to be on camera and let me see you, that'd be awesome. And then again, as you're entering the room, please in the chat, put in there what your business is, what you want it to be, are you in business or not, and then what do you want out of the class? Oh, Yolanda's our library person. Welcome, Yolanda. Excellent. We are going to try to start on time as close as possible because no one's stuck in traffic because we're on Zoom. And we want to honor and respect people who are on time. But I will give myself a couple minutes to start writing people's names down. Welcome, Meg. Thank you, Meg. Um, helping nonprofits. And Rabbit. Awesome. Uh, Michelle. Doula. Why do I know what that is? Doula. What makes in a business do it properly? I might have to research that one. I know that sounds familiar when you say it. I'm going to know what it is. Curiosity, Michelle. If you say what a doula is in chat, I'd be curious so I can define that. Consulting, marketing. That's me cheap. Perfect. And score. Hello. I know Pete. All right, awesome. Anybody else who's now entering the room, what we'd like you to do, if you can, please, we are going to start shortly. Put in there your business or what it is or you want it to be. Are you in business, yes or no? And then what do you want out of this class? Birth coach. That's what that is. I knew that. I knew that sounded familiar. Thank you. Birth coach. Chris. Consulting. Nonprofits. All right, awesome. And again, we are going to start shortly. I'm just giving some people time to tell me what they are doing or want to do. I'm starting from scratch on the business side. I don't have experience doing this for a former employer. All right. And then I will say it again for the probably 10th time. As you're entering the room, everybody, please, if you can, help. What I try to do is make it personal. So if you tell us what your business is, what you want it to be, are you in business, and then what do you want out of this class today? All right. I think I got, right? We either have a shy group today or people are coming in slowly. So awesome. All right. So let's, okay, wait, Chris, so Temic. Meal prepping. And then getting started. Got market analysis. For people who want market analysis, definitely, like, as far as that, I mean, we'll talk about it. So marketing, definitely stay here for the entire presentation. The library has a great resource to really get into analytics of your market and areas and competition. And so definitely do not bail out early, stay for the whole thing. They speak for the last 25 minutes on that. All right, so Cerise, plan for success. Oh, awesome. Michelle, Soul Prop. That will definitely Soul versus LLC. Cerise, consulting. Market. Is there a market? Okay, awesome. All right, I'm gonna kind of get started. So Pete, you want to do your intro that I started to go ahead
Sure.
to launch it all off. Let's
Well,
get it started.
welcome everybody. I'm Peter Safer. Ironically, Keith and I joined SCORE same time around 2016, so we're considered old timers, but I'm an older timer. So we're glad you're here. We've got a great chapter. Charlotte was considered the Southeastern winner of the chapter of the year. We've got about 90 to 100 mentors. If you don't have a mentor and you're interested, you can contact the Charlotte SCORE and request a mentor, and we'd be happy to accommodate you. Keith is going to be teaching the Simple Steps class today. He mentioned, and we're put this out, but maybe some of you didn't hear it, that he likes it if you are able to leave your camera on. You're not required to, but he likes any attempted interactive on a Zoom call. So I tried to promote each of you to panelists, which gives you the ability to turn your camera on. Most of you decline, but if you want to revisit that, if you're willing, that allows Keith to get a little bit of visual feedback, and then we're going to field a few questions later on. So welcome to SCORE. We got a great program. It's a well-practiced program, and we'll give you a lot of information in the next 90 minutes. I think that's it. If you have questions or comments, put them in the chat so that we don't disrupt the flow. But Keith is very efficient. He'll get around to all of it. So I think having said that, I'll just revisit and promote everybody to panelists if you're interested, but not required. And I'm going to mute myself, which is a good idea generally. And I'm going to turn off my camera. Thank you. Welcome again.
You're welcome. Thank you, Pete. And like I think what Pete said, also when you have questions, please either just raise your hand in the room. If you're a panelist, you could just, if I can't see you, raise your hand. You're more than welcome to Keith. I got a question. You can put a question in the chat. If Pete can answer it, he'll answer it in the chat. And sometimes if he thinks it's good for the whole group, I'll read it. Sometimes I'll read the chat to the group. I mean the question, and we can answer it for the whole group. So. But yes, welcome everybody. I'm going to start my screen now. Hold on. All right. So we are here at Simple Steps 1. You all either found SCORE again, you will learn one of the things we'll talk about is technology in this presentation. And I am in the process of dealing with that as a business owner. My internet constantly stinks here. We can't get fiber, even though there's fiber all over, there's no conduit to my building. So I'm still trying to figure out where to put a conduit, trying to get that answer from Spectrum, trying to get it from Windstream. I just changed to a new internet. I'm using now the T-Mobile Business. It's working better. So if I get a little laggy, I do apologize, but that's one of the things as a business owner you will constantly deal with is things that aren't even in your business. Now you become a technology person. But I have people that have been trying to help me out and so forth. So anyway, I just been off on that tangent because I was dragging here a little bit due to my internet. And here we go. So simple steps 1. So most of you found Score. Peter said the Score is most of Score. We're all volunteers. Some of us are in business, some of us are not in business. I think Pete is retired. I myself, I am still in business. And I actually work with a lot of people professionally who are business owners, helping them with cash flow planning, tax planning, business structure. Well, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney, but in my profession, I do tax planning, cash flow planning, business planning, and all kinds of financial planning. So I do it professionally. And when I met Score many years ago at a chamber event where I went to learn more about business resources and to network, Score was on the panel, and I spoke to Score, and I said, "Wow, this is great what you guys do. I not only do I do it professionally, I do pro bono work all the time. What a great organization to do this kind of work for." So here I am, 10 years later. And this is a great class. So if you don't have a mentor yet, and learning more about Score, definitely get yourself a mentor where someone like myself or Peter or one of the other 50 active mentors in Charlotte will work with you on a one-on-one basis, helping you with all the stuff we're talking about today. And if you're not in Charlotte, don't worry about it because Score has offices all over the state of North Carolina. And that's right, we have people all through the state now engaging and participating in these classes. So welcome if you're not locally here in Charlotte as well. All right. And again, feel free to interject anytime, ask questions anytime, of course, as we go through. We already did this part a little bit. When we do them in person, we have the ability more to go around the room and have a little more interaction with your businesses. But with this being more open to the state, it's because we have a lot of people in the room to do it one-on-one. But as you saw, we went through the room a little bit initially, and I wrote down what your businesses are and what you want to do. So hopefully we do a good job of trying to pinpoint it to some, particularly the people that are here today. All right. Score services, just go to throughout the meeting today. You'll see some websites come up here and there. So you write them down, but a lot of resources available through Score. But as you see, you definitely can get a one-on-one mentor. So I want to encourage you all to do one-on-one sessions, get yourself a mentor. I meet with I have Score clients, I mentor as well. We'll do one-on-ones all the time, either face-to-face here at my office, meet at a coffee shop somewhere, or definitely do a lot of video mentoring as well. You are here in the educational program, one of the many webinars that we offer. They're starting to do some a little bit sporadically, I think, in person again, and a lot of great online resources. And they do every once in a while. Score will promote or announce some networking events that are available. And when people talk about marketing, to me, networking events, whether it's through Score or chambers or others, are a great way to learn and also meet people who might help your business, as just learning more to grow your business or help your business through marketing or sales. But also networking helps a lot with getting new customers and clients as well. So but that's about Score, all different services that are provided. Definitely continue to use the resource for sure. And then again, like we said, they're all over. There's offices and mentors all throughout the state, and so forth. So just find your chapter. Here's the website right here on the right. But welcome to anybody out of this local area. But not only does the Score have chapters all through North Carolina, they have chapters all through the country as well. If you moved or and so forth, you can still use the resource. So what are we doing today, right? So what we are doing today, I like to draw, is we are actually, well, you are here, right? We are doing simple steps 1, startup basics. So really what we're going to talk about today is a higher level of all of this. Okay. Business concept. We're going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk about financials. And then of course, funding options. Okay. Now, some people might use this discussion as And really this is your business plan, right? Your business plan and I'm not as I and when I talk these classes, I do jump around a lot, but because jumping around a lot, everything is connected, right? So when we talk about the business plan later, well, it's connected to this conversation right now, which is your business plan is what are you doing? What's your business, right? How are you going to market and sell? What are your financials, right? That's your business plan, right? Now, I'm one of those people that likes to keep things short, simple, and sweet, right? I don't need a big book, right? I think the bigger the written plan for me, the less I read, right? So, but keep it short and sweet, whether you write it down on a pad, put it on a Word document, but really that's your business plan. And that's what we're doing today is a high-end level of what is part of what you should be doing as a business owner, which you should be writing down. So when someone asks you, you can give it to them, which is your business plan. All right. So simple steps. One is a higher level of all of these things. All right. Then what you would do with your mentor or your other business advisors or coaches or people or on your own is work on the details of your business concept, marketing plan, and your financials to ultimately, for some people, determine, are you even going to do this business? Or maybe shift what you're doing, or which maybe product line or revenue do you want to focus on, and so forth. But that's really what we're here and we're doing today is to talk about all these things as a startup of what you should be thinking or doing or focusing on, which again is really in essence your business plan. All right. This is where I say, does it make sense? So I can see two people on my screen who are hopefully doing that. All right. In a class, they'd be going like this, or I could see that glazed look on people's faces when I'm talking. So that's why I like the people to go on cameras. I can see how glazed over you are or not. So awesome. I am looking forward to the day where they bring this class back live. I think they're doing one at a library live soon here in Charlotte. So, um, all right. So startup basics, what are you going to learn today? We talked about the benefits of today. I'm going to talk about the myths and realities of entrepreneurship in a second. What are the critical factors to be successful? Do you have that? What are your options to owning a business? There's actually different ways you can start or get into business. We'll talk about that. What are the components of ownership? Making it legal. I think that I know one person, Michelle, said sole proprietor versus LLC. So we're gonna hit on LLC versus sole versus S corp, C corp. We're gonna hit on that. One of the business plan basics for a business plan. We start talking about that, and then at the end, you'll have a self-assessment for you to do at the end on your own to kind of judge where you are and where you need to focus your energy on improvement. Okay. And of course, talk about next steps. So that's what we'll learn. This is all what we will, again, be talking about today. FYI, talk about as a business owner, things you got to work on the fly sometimes. I got the new deck 5 minutes before the meeting, which is 98% the old deck. But this is this is one of the new slides. So, what are the benefits of a workshop? I think we kind of hit on them all already, but help you really, what's your feasibility? Some people, can they afford it? That's your cash flow part. We're going to talk you through this is all really helping people make a decision of how to move forward. And we're going to help you work on the core information for your business plan and give you direction on how to get started or where to go next. Okay. So again, that's the benefits of what we're talking about today. To me, this is kind of a summary of that previous slide. So cool. All right. Myth number one. Now let's talk about some myths and realities of being in business for yourself, or being an entrepreneur. And again, this is one of my key tangents. I say business for yourself. That's where I'm becoming neurotic. To me, I'm a business owner, not an entrepreneur, right? Some people say, Keith, but you're still an entrepreneur. To me, an entrepreneur is someone who, I don't know, created the iPhone. A business owner for me is 1,000 people do financial services. So I didn't create financial services, but I did create a business. But people say, Keith, you're still an entrepreneur because within your business, you've done some unique things. So yeah, I true. But at the end of the day, we're either entrepreneurs, which are also business owners, right? So what are some of those myths? One of them is that you won't have to work hard or put in long hours. For some, maybe that's true up front. For many, not at all. You are going to put in a lot of work. You are going to put in a lot of hours. But yes, you maybe can build your business up to the point it might take 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years where you can work less and work less hours and not as hard. But definitely not in the beginning. That is not the case. And for some people, it's never the case. They have to work less hours or less work. Depends on the business sometimes. All right. Myth number two is what you're doing is unique. Um, Again, for some of you, there might be, but consulting, and maybe in your consulting world, you're a little bit unique with what you're consulting on. Doulas, there's not a lot, but I've heard of birthing coaches. Um, Active with pets, that might be totally different than everybody else. Um, but my point being meal prep, I've actually had a client that was doing meal prep. So, but my point is we all think we're unique, but at the end of the day, you're not. Not a bad thing. Um, it really comes down to implementation. How well do you implement? Um, how good are you at going out, doing the things you're supposed to be doing? But yes, if you have a unique value proposition, or unique thing about like, in our business where we're not unique, but where we are unique is that we don't utilize stock picking. So when I'm out in the public, I'll emphasize that in our marketing and sales, right? But the myth again is that you're not necessarily as unique as you think because there's always competition. All right. Myth number three, as a business owner, you can deduct everything, so you don't have to pay taxes. That is not true. Um, you cannot deduct everything, and you have to be careful with what you deduct and how you deduct it. So that's one. I'll leave that one to save time to you and your accountants and your other coaches to make sure you're doing it correctly. Um, but yeah, you can't just deduct everything, um, and you will have to pay taxes. And if you think about it, at the end of the day, especially as a business owner, if you're not paying taxes, then you're not profitable. Um, so ultimately, you're going to be paying taxes is the point of that myth. Maybe not in the beginning as much, um, but you will be, and you can't just deduct everything is my point. Okay. Myth number four is you won't have a boss. Well, that's true because you're the owner of the business. Depending on your business, you're going to have a boss. I'm putting that in quotes. Your boss is your clients. Your boss might be your vendors. Your boss is, again, clients or customers, but your boss could be vendors. In my industry, my boss is the government a little bit, right? I can't do everything I want to do. I have to be compliant. I have to, follow rules of the federal government, follow rules of the state. I get audited by the state, so they're kind of a boss. I have vendors and suppliers; they're kind of a boss. So you might have partners. So again, you're gonna have people you have to answer to is the point. But yes, you do have more control. But sometimes you're still going to be in that world where you don't have full autonomy to always do what you want and how you want to do it. So a myth is that people think you do whatever you want all the time, and no, that's not always the case. Okay. Which is back to myth number four, is that owners get to do whatever they want when they want. So those are some myths in reality. Just kind of get your head around in case you weren't thinking about them, to kind of build that expectation to the reality of what to expect as you get into business ownership or entrepreneurship. Make sense? Yes? Cool. Couple little stats here. Again, what is your probability that you'll be in business X years from now? So these numbers have actually improved over the years. They used to say if you're a bit, people will fail after 2 years, a higher probability. So people are sticking around longer, right? So half the people who get into business fail after 5 years. Okay. And the reason is they're not doing the things we're talking about today, right? They're not selling, they're not networking, they're not following up with people, they're not doing all the stuff they're supposed to be doing. But really, what the next slide really is more impactful to me. Wait a minute. They took it out. All right, there you go. There used to be two slides here. So I'm using a new deck for the first time. Um, so maybe the other one was 2 years. So it gave the stats of failure. And as you went out, the failure, it was like 75%. Like it was a much higher failure rate. So um, the point being is there's a high failure rate of businesses, and it's just because it's hard. It's not easy, and they're not doing the things they're supposed to be doing. And ironically, it's also not they're not doing the things ongoing, right? I actually had a client that had her own like a medical practice by herself, renting a small office, and then she ended up renting another one for another person. And then I hadn't seen that person in about a year. They stopped kind of seeing me. Next thing I know, they moved to a big facility. And I was thinking, whoa, I knew how many patients she needed to ramp up to do that because we were kind of at one point a little bit looking at that. But she didn't do anything. And then about a year and a half later, she went out of business. And I kind of saw it coming a little bit because she did all the work with me in the beginning at that smaller place and didn't do any of it when she grew and expanded. So anyway, I've gone on a tangent there, but just kind of like give you some reality stories. Not only do you have to do it up front, but a lot of these things you got to do it over time and keep doing it. And that's why businesses stay in business or fail if they're not doing the things they're supposed to be doing on an ongoing basis. All right. So what are some critical factors you need to have in order to be successful? And this one, I always say, if you didn't have these things, you wouldn't be here today. But however, sometimes people aren't honest with themselves. So if you don't have so these are some critical factors you need to have to be successful. Number one is education in your field or experience in the field. You have to have a strong work ethic, right? You know, you really have to manage your time effectively. You have more distractions. You have to be able to manage and multitask. You're gonna be we're gonna share a little bit. You're gonna be juggling a lot of balls, a lot of things you have to do. You have to have the ability to do that, right? Um, I don't know if this applies as much to the doula, but I'm thinking of like my chiropractors, my massage people, and even restaurant people, right? They're doing something at a place, and then they want to go open a restaurant, or they're a medical doctor, or they're even a consultant, right? Maybe you're a consultant working for a company doing consulting. And then you go out and open your own consulting. You don't realize all the other things and multitasking you're gonna have to, they're now on your plate, right? And then I've seen people after a while go back and say, dang, I just was really enjoying being a doctor or a doula or a consultant. Now I'm not, now half the time I'm not even doing that, right? And they kind of, want to go back to that. So anyway, so you have to be able to manage and multitask. You also need to be willing to accept advice and take advice from others. To this day, I am still in networking groups, not for the referrals, because of the advice and the feedback I still get from other business owners in that group, right? I still ask my clients. I get feedback from my clients. I ask them all the time. I ask for feedback from other wholesalers and other partners. So I actually seek feedback. But when I get it, a lot of my business, I've had people say, Keith, how did you get to where you're at? Part of it is me. A lot of it is I tell them I built it over the years, and a lot of it has come from feedback from clients. I had this on my agenda because of a client or something I got from somebody else. So anyway, get into the weeds there on that one as well. But that's a critical one. It's got my voice is cracked. That's a critical one. Um, is the openness to and and not being upset and not having too thick of a skin when people try to give you feedback as a business owner. Um, you have to be willing to take advice from others. It's extremely critical from my perspective. Especially as a business owner, I kind of feel early on, like I was by myself. So I wanted to be around other people and I wanted that feedback and that advice because you don't get it when you're not in a more of a corporate environment where people are giving you feedback and advice. And then adequate capital, obviously, you need to have, but however, through proper planning, um, I can show people how you actually can grow a business without adequate capital, right? Just grow it slow, right? Well, how do you do that? You do it through revenue. Well, how do you do that? You do it through good cash flow planning. So, but yes, adequate capital definitely helps. Another one on this one that I would say adequate experience. If you don't have this as a critical thing, I have seen people who have had a lot of capital, and one I know was an AC guy, been running a very successful AC business for a long time, and he's one person, he had no AC experience, but he was very good in operations, and he had a lot of money. So when he set up his business to do AC repair, he immediately had people that he hired who had the expertise. So that's one way you can get away from not having expertise in your field, right? Is the adequate capital or partnering with somebody who does have the experience, right? Make sense? Sure it does. Awesome. All right. All right. So here's what I love. Many years ago, when they updated the deck, they took the cash flow part from the end and they put it in the beginning. So it's still in the beginning, which I love. So now, as part of your business plan is your financials, right? So do you have the adequate financials um, to run your business to start and ongoing, right? So what are some of the essential things that you should be considering when it comes to your financials? Right? Do you have to buy tools and equipment? Um, Meal prep might, not sure what to active with pets. The consulting people, not sure how much tools and equipment will have. Do you have to have, improvements? Do you, in your industry, you need to get licensed. So make sure you follow what regulatory and licensing requirements federally in the state or even your county and city might be required upfront and ongoing. Um, in my industry, I definitely have a ton of this. I definitely have a ton of this I have to comply to. Um, do you have initial inventory, right? Um, how much reserves do you need? And then some of the stuff like inventory, ongoing. What is your monthly cost for inventory? Meaning, I'm trying to think, my meal prep person, maybe a little bit I have a beauty salon client. And so for her inventory, we've eventually built in monthly expense. You had an upfront cost, to supply upfront supplies, and then ongoing, how often you have to resupply. What does it cost you to resupply? Stuff like that. So start writing this stuff down. I think the next one, hopefully, is still my ongoing expenses one. Okay, it isn't. Um, So even in here, I think I gotta go back to what deck I took out, but I am also into like start writing it down. So my upfront costs are boom, 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 and then my monthly costs are going to be, I'm going to have internet. I'm going to have, you know, uh, uh, I call it CRM, client relationship manager. So mine is called Wealthbox. Some people use Salesforce. How you going to, what software you're going to use to manage your clients? Do you have a website? People talked about marketing and sales. Um, as I'm a visual talk, I'm a visual, hold on, and I'm a visual talker, and I only know this is important because a lot of people find value. So if you didn't, I apologize bringing this kind of up. But when I talk about cash flow stuff, like whether you work with a bookkeeper or yourself, are you writing down all your monthly costs, right? So then really, ultimately, what I'm like what you're getting to is upfront and ongoing. Well, what do you think your revenue? Wait a minute. I know what? I'm not even sharing again, am I? Oop. Right? So these are financials, right? So I'm not even going to get to this part yet, right? But what do you expect your revenue to be a year? You know, 50 grand, right? What's your monthly going out? Because she's got to pay for facility payments, right? Here's her supplies, right? So we're figuring out, and then, what's the profit loss for the year? And then even backing into it, if someone asked about pricing, then you could go down with someone and say, all right, well, how many how much how many customers you need to see, how many meals you need to sell, how many active pet clients do you need, how many nonprofits do you need, whether it's a service, you can kind of back into, if this is my monthly cost, how many people or products or services I have to do based on my price point to generate that revenue. And then maybe you can use it to play with your price point. And how much should I charge? Or can I afford to charge less? Or how many people need to see at this price point to meet your eventually expense number, right? Which is right down here. Now, this girl right now is doing her hair cutting part-time, right? So eventually this is going to go up because she wants to figure out how could she replace her dental office work with doing this full time. So I don't know if this is helping or not. These are financials. Definitely start your financials. Write down your upfront cost. Write down your ongoing cost. And your mentor or somebody else will look at that and say, oh, wait a minute. What about liability insurance? What about the cost for this? What about your, you know, this software? What about that supply cost? So start writing it down, and you'll figure out what should you charge, and what does your revenue need to be in order to meet your monthly and ongoing costs, right? And then with my clients, then yes, what we'll do in here is we will track it, right? So then we'll track her actual. So on my spreadsheet, anything black hasn't happened yet, anything blue has, right? So here was her revenue, here was her estimated revenue, and then here's what we actually saw for money flowing out. So here's how we do the snapshot for the year, and then here's how we track it ongoing. And you can do it on a spreadsheet, or you can do it in a QuickBooks, however you want to do it. But these are your financials in a nutshell, right? Hopefully that helped some people. And wait, where's my? Okay. All right.
And Keith,
Yes.
this is a quick question. Ann Clemens had a question about what software would you recommend for a small business if you're just getting started? Would that be part of those startup costs if you had anything to recommend?
Yeah, you know what? Okay, I'm gonna say I don't personally, because I use an industry specific software. I know I've seen people, I don't know how they do it through Outlook, has a CRM. And anyone in the class, I'm like face to face, could say, yeah, I use Outlook for my CRM, but I've seen people use Outlook as our CRM. I know I've seen people use Constant Contact as a common CRM. I've seen people use Salesforce. So I don't know, if Peter, if you have any other ones that you can think of. But yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't tuned in. What was the
Oh,
question?
do you know of any CRMs that you know of that startups use? A common startup you use, like, whether it's
I don't
Confluence.
have one. I've had clients mention some, but I don't know any in particular. At least not at the moment. I could possibly look it into it, but
Yeah, those are some of the ones that I see people use is Constant Contact, Salesforce, um, and Outlook's CRM. So, all right. Hope that helps. Thank you. Do I have any other questions in the chat? All right, perfect. Okay. So, all right. So the other thing also, we talk about cash flow, And that's what this one is right here. This slide talks about the personal side. So I always tell clients, I recommend have an understanding of your personal cash flow and how much money do you need out of this business to fund it, right? So if you're single, married, it can be different numbers, right? So even with a lot of my clients, sometimes what we'll do is on the personal side, well, what's the minimum, right? Not that you want to live on the minimum, but if you do your personal side, well, there might be vacations in there and, how much you eat out, or I don't know, not that you want to, cut your personal life, but, when you're starting up, you know, how much back in the personal cash, back to the business cash flow is knowing how much money we need to be pulling out of the business to provide to your house. And that's what they're telling you here on this slide is having an understanding on your personal side what your needs are there as well. Okay. So what are your options? And gosh, I spent a lot of time. I'm gonna check all right, I got 1 minute, 30 minutes. Okay, perfect. All right. So now we're gonna talk about what are your options to starting a business? And there's actually multiple ways you can do it, right? So you can start from scratch. You can buy someone's existing business. You can buy a franchise. Now, there is overlap. You could do a home-based business or an online business completely, but there are franchises that are these, right? So you can buy some and do both. So these do overlap and it's to a certain extent with that. But you could be 100% online, but you can start from scratch, maybe buy someone's, right? They overlap. And then, of course, you also could be a nonprofit. So these are your options of getting started. So now we're going to talk about the pros and cons of each, or the disadvantages and advantages of each, or pros and cons. So if you start from scratch, it's your baby, right? It's yours. You're starting from scratch. You choose your own name, your location, your logo, what you want to do, your purpose, your mission, everything is yours, right? But a negative of that, or a disadvantage is the correct word, not negative, is the fact that you're starting from scratch, right? So you have no customer base, no track record. And you're taking a bigger risk, right? So that's the advantage and disadvantage of starting from scratch, right? So what other people might do instead of starting from scratch is you can buy an existing business, right? What's the advantages of that? Well, they have an established clientele. They're a known entity. You can review their financials. And if you need lending or want lending, it is definitely easier to get lending if you're buying an existing business. So as I jump ahead, because lending came up to the later on in the presentation with funding and financing. A misconception is it's easy, or maybe it isn't a misconception anymore, but I always like to be positive, but to put a not so positive, but a reality on you all, getting money as a startup is almost impossible, right? So generally, from my experience, the banks want to see at least 2 years of revenue. So getting back to buying an existing business, that's why it can be easier for financing. They're going to be nervous because of the disadvantage side, but at least if you buy an existing business correctly with a good transition plan from the previous owner, there's more opportunities to get financing and lending from banks. Okay. But some of the disadvantages of buying an existing business is there could be hidden debts, hidden, risk, right? The business owner might have a bad reputation, right? The employees might have an issue with employees. So obviously, hopefully you do a good job in the beginning to address those potential disadvantages, but they exist. And one thing I would say to anybody, if you are considering buying an existing business, and back to that transition plan, there is definitely have a good transition plan in place. And what do I mean by that? I always use landscapers as the example here. Because I had a client who, Keith, I don't want to, he had no business plan to sell his practice in his retirement plan. I'm like, what about your business? Like, you could sell it for something at 25,000, 50,000, and probably worth a lot more, 100,000. Oh yeah. But like, he didn't want to sell it to someone he didn't know because of his clients. Didn't want to, but I'm like, well, they're gonna have to hire someone they don't know. Why don't, my point I'm getting at is like, is there anybody in your current business who might want to buy it? Or I don't know about you, but I see new landscape businesses all the time. And a lot of them will love to buy an existing business. Why? Because of the advantages. They've already got, they could buy 20 accounts or 100 accounts. But then I would tell that person, but be careful because your risk is they don't know you. So I told this landscaper, find a potential buyer before you retire 2, 3 years out or a year out. My point is that person could buy the business in a transition plan. You want, if you're not already working with that previous owner and you're buying from a previous owner, you want to make sure when you buy it, you have some transition plan where that previous owner is somehow involved in the business. Not completely, but maybe for the first year before you fully buy it, like this landscaper, I say, you're taking them on landscaping calls. You're introducing that person to the to the businesses that you're doing jobs at, right? So when you do retire or sell the business, there's they know the person a little bit. Or if you're buying it from a previous business, you're not going to have that. Well, I don't know you. I knew John or Sally, and they just go shop and leave you because you're new. So anyway, just do it correctly. Have a good transition plan. But that is a great way again to get into business, for the reasons that we just talked about. All right. You also can buy a franchise. So there is literally a franchise for any business. So if, one of the advantages of buying a franchise is they tend to have a proven system of success. They'll give you marketing and sales support, right? Some of them will give you marketing and sales support to help you how to market and sell. And some of them do national marketing, national sales, and will, provide leads and stuff for you. They'll give you continued consulting and access to other franchises for help. Obviously, some disadvantages is that the franchise has a problem, you have a problem. You'll be limited. Some of them have contracts that limited you to geography. And they don't let you do all things they might want to do, right? You might want to do a sales campaign and a marketing campaign, but they might have restrictions on how you can market and sell. So that's a disadvantage of franchise. But they all have pros and cons. Those are the 3 main ways that you can get started: from scratch, buy an existing business, or do a franchise. If anyone is considering a franchise, there is a company that I know called FranNet. They are consultants. You do not pay them. They only get paid if you ever engage with a franchise. All right. So that'd be a good resource for you there. So moving on. So if you're a home-based business, so again, those first 3, you could do them from home, right? Depending on your business. So what are the disadvantages and advantages of doing a home business, or part of your business from home? Obviously, it's convenient, less overhead because you're not going to have physical space, flexible schedule. This one, I will warn you, be careful. They call it an advantage here. If you have a home business, or if you have a business, but you are working from home and you are deducting your home space for business, just be very careful with that and consult with your accountants. There's a lot of rules around that. So if you don't do it correctly, you can kind of get yourself in trouble. So that's one where I warn people on more so than others. Just be careful with that. But of course, if you do it correctly, there is a tax advantage to running a business from home. And then also you can hire people and work from anywhere. And you can sell to anybody anywhere. What are disadvantages? This one right here, be very careful. Depending on your business, I mean, help nonprofit, I mean, meal prep might have, if you're doing it from home, a doula. Well, I don't know if there's zoning, not restrictions, but there might be some regulatory stuff you have to comply with. But point being, right? Just make sure you comply with your county, city, and state, whatever, if you're working from home, whatever your business is. And then also your HOAs. A lot of your HOAs have rules that you can't do businesses from home. Now, I've seen people that have done business from home where their HOA doesn't allow it, but they might not never know. The only way they're going to know, again, back to my landscaper example, this time because it happened in my neighborhood, it was obvious. You saw the trucks parked in front of his house every night, and then cars coming in, loading the trucks, and then all leaving. So eventually he got a letter, then he had to go out and rent space and keep all of his equipment and trucks there, which is important to know for two reasons: is hopefully his cash flow plan, that changed his cash flow in his financials, right? So what did that cost him? That hurt his profitability. And, but make sure you follow the rules. You could be isolated from others, of course. Definitely difficult financing, and you can be distracted from family. And then the next one is online business. So obviously that could be home-based as well. Advantages, low to get started. Customers are definitely more comfortable buying online. You can sell anywhere. It's convenient and, again, flexible. Disadvantage is anybody can do it, right? Low entry barrier. Consumers have a high expectations and are less tolerant of problems. And obviously, I'm a feel and touching guy. No personal contact, limited sensory, and I guess you also deal with a lot of returns, right? Because people they buy with the expectation they'll easily return it. Another thing I would add here is cost to convert people to clients. And this also, as I jump around to marketing, even online. If you have an online business, I just said the cost to turn somebody into a customer, right? So even back to marketing, if people here are going to do any, social media like Facebook advertising or Google ads or Instagram, or even whether it's Pinterest, what's the one? Etsy, right? I mean, I've been in business myself. I do online marketing for my business. In the beginning, it was free, right? Meaning I could put a post on, and promote my website or promote a product, and 1,000 people. I mean, Facebook showed it to everybody. Now they show it to a lot less. Over the years, I saw it, they showed to everybody, and now they only show it to 1,000, and then they only showed it to. Now they show it to like 12, unless I pay. And in the beginning, I could pay $10, they show it to 1,000. Now, if I pay $30, they only show it to 400 people, right? So the cost to turn even an online business, a visitor, into a customer, and the same thing for all you people, when you're marketing, the same thing. If you do any paying for marketing, it's not it costs more money to turn into a customer. And then I'm going to say to you all, what else are you doing besides online marketing, right? Are you doing, events? Are you doing networking, physical? Are you doing mailers? Are you doing phone calls? We do email marketing. So when I do online marketing, for us, our goal is how much activity do we get? And then do we get an email? Because then the email can go to our email marketing. But the point I'm getting at here, it costs way more money to convert to a customer. And back to the marketing, back to your cash flow plan, it's a lot cheaper than what it used to cost to print in the newspaper. And I used to do print in Cabarrus Business Magazine, and it might cost me $800 for a full page. or 375 or a lot for a quarter ad, where I got a lot more activity early on when doing online advertising. But again, what are the multiple ways of your marketing as I jump around in my talks? But that is a disadvantage or a thing to be aware of converting to customers. It's, it costs money. You want to build that also into your cash flow plan. Right. I did have a nonprofit, but I was a consulting to help nonprofits. I'm not sure if anybody was doing a full nonprofit, but really, the advantage is that you could qualify for grants and whether it's government, local, or federal. You're obviously protected from liability as a director, and you can pay yourself a salary. And if you're in a really good nonprofit that has a lot of money coming in and doing a lot of money going out, yeah, I've seen people in nonprofits that do get six-figure incomes. But it might take you a long time to get there, but that is a possibility. Disadvantages, obviously, is it can't be for profit. All money stays in the organization, and it's a lot of work to do a 501c. So here, the one thing I'll say about nonprofits that I see from experience that I would add to a disadvantage is people don't realize how much of your energy is spent raising money, and not really doing the cause you yourself per se doing the cause that got you to a nonprofit to begin with, right? And it's very hard to raise money. So that's all I want to say on that. Normally in a class, I say, does anybody have a nonprofit? No, I don't know a lot about nonprofits. The point I would say is on this one, again, back to that, you spend a lot of your time raising money. So just be prepared for that. All right. Any questions on any of these ways to start a business as I keep moving on? Nope. We good? Awesome. All right. So, and I keep looking at my clock, just looking at my time. All right. So, like I said, so now you're in business. So what are all the hats you're going to wear? Like I said earlier, right? So you are the owner. You're the boss. You're the CEO. But you're doing all of this, right? You're the accountant. You're tracking your money. If you have employees, you're the human resources. You're in charge of marketing. And I'm going to circle this one and star it, right? You're in charge of sales, right? You're in charge of service, fulfillment, right? Technology. I told you, I'm dealing with actually, you haven't heard me complain again since the first time, but beforehand, my internet was horrible here with Spectrum, trying to get him to improve it and yada, yada. I was involved in technology, right? I got to get my guy on the phone, Mark, and what are we going to do? Yada, yada, right? And facility. I'm an owner of my space, so I'm also in charge of my facility, right? When there's stuff going on. So you're wearing all the hats. So eventually, you're going to figure out, can you, and do you want to delegate any of this? So why did I circle sales? Sales, sales, sales. Unfortunately, or fortunately, every person in this room will ultimately be successful or not based on how much revenue do they have. And that is going to be driven from sales. Yes, marketing is part of sales, right? But so, what are you doing to sell, right? That's why I circled it. But you're doing all this stuff, right? But if you're focused on everything else and you're not getting revenue, nothing else matters, right? I always joke around. Some people are like, I have had people in my paid business who have come to me who have done none of anything we've spoken with, right? But they're so successful because they come in like, this one guy, again, he does boiler repair, industrial boiler repair. Not many people do that. So he just started the business and had so much business coming out. He just hospital here, hospital there, brewery here. By the time he came to see me, he just wanted to get a handle of everything. But his sales were enough that we finally did his cash flow, his financials, everything. He had so much profit. It was easy, right? But generally, that's why I emphasize sales, right? I had a gentleman the other day, he does beard product and he's focusing on this and focusing on that and doing this, his business plan. I'm like, can you sell this stuff? Can you get customers right now? He goes, yeah. I'm like, well, you're an LLC. You got all this done. The one thing he didn't have done, he didn't have liability insurance. I said, well, get that in place. Otherwise, start selling, is what I told him. Just start selling. You're already going to be selling. Just do it. And then, well, you want to have this all up front, but at some point, again, sales, 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 revenue, revenue, revenue. That being said, you're wearing all these hats. You are also going to have to do an accounting, service, fulfillment, into your cash flow. You might have the ability eventually to delegate some of this stuff. So maybe back to it, where are your skills? Maybe you're not good at sales. Maybe you have to partner with somebody. So working with your mentor or working with other people. How can I do sales and delegate it? Well, Keith, I don't have any money to do sales and delegate it. Well, maybe we can find, maybe you consignment. Maybe you can find someone who you could do revenue sharing. Or maybe, I mean, you get creative. I can get creative with people. Accounting, can you delegate bookkeeping? Can you delegate certain things? But again, I'm going to move on because I can spend a lot of time here. But keep in mind, these are all the hats you're going to be wearing. All right. All right. So now we're kind of getting into marketing and sales, right? So branding, what's next? Marketing. Okay. I'm trying to see where they're coming with me now with this new deck. All right. Perfect. All right. Branding obviously is you want to be consistent. So sales and marketing is, you want to be consistent with your branding across all channels, whether it's what your message is, even your color scheme, people say, your font, always have your logo. So again, you want to know obviously who your audience is, identify who your audience is, and then, brand or market to those people in a way that it will resonate with them. So and then of course, how are you different than maybe your competition? Like I told you. So, you want to kind of put that consistently through your branding and marketing. All right. And that's where I know someone comes up a lot and I even came in my head, what's the difference between branding and marketing? There actually is a difference between branding and marketing that some people do it for a living could explain it to, but there's a nuance difference. Okay. So, a lot of times, even in my practice, I'll say, well, this is really for branding because I'm not expecting a customer, but I know if I keep doing this, people will see over time, my message per se. But again, that's branding, marketing, again, back to business plan, start writing this stuff down. What is your brand? Who is your target market? Who are you trying to sell? Back to this. Who are you trying to sell to? Who do you want to advertise to? What does that market look like? And then here, what is the strategy you're going to use to touch those people, right? And market to them. Covered in detail. Yeah. So remember in the beginning where I showed you, I'm a visual talker. This one right here. That's what that slide said. There are classes. I think we used to have these classes in person. So right now, I think there's still only the decks are on one of the portals for you to use on your own. So when that slide said session 3, so maybe SCORE might be bringing them back to do in person, but you would then go to classes and work on this section and then one by itself and so forth. That's what that slide was saying. So as I go back to that slide where I was, so I don't know if when they said covered, there's an asterisk if they're bringing back. The president of SCORE was on the call earlier. If he's still on, he wants to jump in. But that, so that's what that meant. But that's what workshop 3 was the marketing plan, right? That's what you work on what we're talking about right now. So again, so who are you going to sell to? what your message is going to be, and to me, what are the various channels of which you're going to do it, right? So, you know, I know with my business, we do physical online education. We do webinars like Score does ourselves, right? We do Facebook advertising. I sometimes do online through different local periodicals. I have email marketing, right? Shoot, I saw someone at a chamber event, not a chamber event. I went to a networking event. I hadn't seen him in like 4 years. He's like, Keith, I still get your emails. I saw you just had an event. And he's come once in a while. I've had people, they jump around through my marketing. I said, as I talk about, we do Facebook advertising. Sometimes people will say, well, how do you measure your success or failure? Right? Did you sell anything from that? So I do my business, and back as it says, I play the longer game, right? I'm a long game, I don't, again, some business you need the quicker sales. I don't mind quicker sales. But the point I'm getting at is I recently got a new client that set an appointment with me through my website. So all of a sudden, I had an appointment on my calendar. Like, who is this person? And they set it up through my website. And then I kind of saw the name, went through stuff. Long story short, they responded to a Facebook ad when we had a class back in 2017. And they were a no-show to the class. The other day, we had an event back in March. We had 2 people through our Facebook ad registered. Both no-shows. Keith, was that a success or failure? Success for me. Why? I saw tons of activity on my website, tons of activity on my Facebook page. So for branding, the advertising worked. Nobody showed up. That's fine. They're now in my email marketing. And you know what? I just had a client who set up an appointment that registered for an event in 17 that didn't show up. They were in my email marketing for how many years and then booked an appointment. So again, to me, how do you measure success or failure? Might be different than me. We is by activity on our different sites, but the Facebook ad was successful. We saw activity and I got an email. Perfect. Yes, perfect world. Both would have showed up. Sometimes one shows up, sometimes no show up, sometimes all show up, right? But what are the different ways you're going to market? Email marketing. We also do networking. I go to networking events, right? Very big networking. And then what do? I talk about my events. I talk about our online education. I talk about our email education. Hey, would you like to get that education? Do you want to be invited? Sure. I get their card. Now, and I'll go on, but like in your marketing plan, what are the multiple ways you're going to market and sell? And then work with your mentor or yourself or other business owners and learn more about what they're doing that's working for them. Okay. And I think I saw a question. Oh, perfect. Thanks, Pete. Peter, if any one of these questions pop up that you think will fit for the room, let me know and I'll bring it into the room for everybody. All right. Right. So sales, right? What's your process? How are you going to contact and connect with customers? How are you going to find them? How are you going to make presentations? Is it one-on-ones? Is it online? Who prepare if you're I don't know if you have any who prepares your bids, how are you going to close the sale, what's your process? And every business is different, but you definitely want to have a process for all of this, right? All of your activities, and then follow that process consistently. Okay, owner skills and time management. Okay, I think I talked this one in the beginning a little bit. Right? Do you have the skills? Right? This is also not just a business. Okay, I see what they're doing here. All right, perfect. Any of those areas of operation that I showed you before, right? whether it was sales, marketing. And as I say that with outsourcing, back to marketing, be careful though with marketing as far as hiring people. Meaning, there's how do I explain this? Local people to me are different than national people. I get solicited all the time. We'll get you appointments. We'll put this for you. We're gonna, or I've seen other people. We're gonna do a great marketing, and I'm in my business, and I don't know. And they spend thousands of dollars and thousands of dollars on SEO and this and that. At the end of the day, sometimes that, or they spend $5,000 on a mailer, and just yes, you could do that. Just be careful with that, because I could show people how you can market and sell more cost effectively, more efficiently, and have more success than just spending thousands of dollars. It also depends on your business as well, right? Um, of that. Like I think a product business, meaning where you're selling a specific product, is different than a service business per se. But if you don't have strength in those areas, yeah, engage with people who do, right? How do you find people who are good at it? I like local people. I love going to networking events. People like to buy, and this applies to you as for people hiring you and people that you might hire. People buy and engage with people who they know, like, and trust. So people are going to hire you if they know, like, and trust you. And same thing, you're going to engage people to do your taxes or your bookkeeping or sales or marketing for someone that you know, like, and trust. How do you meet those people? Through friends, or other business owners and networking events. Go to the chamber, go to business after hours, go to connect groups, go to, network after work. What is it? Network After Dark in Charlotte. What else is Leo in? I'm blanking out. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but networking groups. And then you can outsource your bookkeeping or partner with people that can help you in areas of your business that you might not be strong at. That's what this slide is saying right here, right there. Or improve on your skills, right? Maybe you can hire based on cash flow planning, outsource stuff. So I'm repeating myself here. Even if you're skilled, I like this one. Even if you're skilled in these roles, I've seen businesses, and I've even seen businesses with an employee, and someone's doing like the books, but that's not their role. I'm like, well, do you enjoy doing the books? No. Like, what would we do if you weren't doing the books? Well, I'd be doing more of this and more of that. Will those help you in sales? Oh yeah. Well, why don't you outsource that? Or bring in someone to, so maybe there's stuff in your business you can outsource it, and in that it'll free you up to do more revenue somewhere else. Okay. Cool. Awesome. A lot of repeats on that one, I think. Again, do you have critical factors in your business to separate yourself? Just communicate it in your marketing, or maybe you can do it in your sales presentation to get more customers, right? But just, how do you price your product? Another thing I get a lot also, like I told you, to me, that's cash flow planning a little bit, well, can I afford to charge 100 an hour or 200 an hour, or how much for my meals, my birthing do I charge if I'm a doula? How much for my meals? How much for activity with pets do I charge? I really want to charge 1,000 or 500. Well, that's what you want, but right now while you're ramping, can you afford to charge 200? Will that meet your cash flow needs? Start growing the business. So just a lot in this slide too, but learn how to price your product. Cash flow planning can help you with that, or the financials will help you with that as well. But know what your competition is doing. And also, charge what you're worth. That's just total value there as well. So, awesome. So now we're kind of repeating myself here. When you're trying to figure out your marketing and sales or pricing your product, yeah, have an idea what your competition is doing, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what they're charging. Not that you want to charge less, but again, especially for startups, sometimes, and back to cash flow and financials, sometimes there's a value of charging less because you maybe can afford to charge less to get the revenue coming in, to use the profit to do some of the other stuff that we want to reinvest it back in the business for more marketing and sales and to grow. So, but just to understand what your competition is doing and just kind of, figure out your sales and marketing, how you can differentiate yourself from them as well and have that part of your marketing and sales, planning and so forth. Okay. All right, here's making it legal. All right, perfect. So, all right, I went off on sales and marketing and everything else. I kind of sometimes don't transition very well. Do I have any questions on the other stuff that I've been talking about? No. Doing good? Thumbs up? People on screen? Yes? Awesome. And if I wasn't doing good, you would still give me a thumbs up though, probably, right? All right, I saw one person say, no, we tell you, Keith. All right, thank you, Tara. Appreciate it. All right. So how do you make it legal? So now, everyone, my most common is people are here or here, right? That's my most common. Then my really second most common is right here. And that's what I am personally, right? But most people do start right here. My pen. Right. These two. My quick disclaimer, I am not an accountant and I am not an attorney. However, I practice one in real life, right? Because I do it professionally. But I'm not an accountant or an attorney professionally. But I advise people a lot on these topics. And then as their, coach or advisor, they have to say, hey, but we need to bring in your accountant or your attorney, to dot the I and cross the T kind of stuff, right? So, and also sometimes they have insight that I don't have, right? So they're definitely critical people to your team. That being said, most people start here or here. The biggest difference between these two is purely liability protection. That is the biggest reason why people go from sole to that is liability protection. As it comes to taxes, as they flow through, they are both what's called flow-through entities. So when it comes to taxes, on your taxes, you have your W-2 income if you're an employee. So if here's a tax, if there's a tax return, you have your salary on this line, and then a bunch of other lines, and then you have your, whatever, the deductions and the government, but your business income is on this line, right? So both of these will flow right down to business income. They're both treated the same when it comes to taxes. You're basically doing here is it's really for liability protection. And I think that might have been Michelle's part of your question. I don't know if it was a tax question or not. I recall it might have been, but tax-wise, they're both treated exactly the same way tax-wise. The profit will flow through and it's taxed. The biggest difference is liability protection. In case you make a mistake, you can't get whatever, can't get sued or so forth. However, if you want to maintain that liability protection of your LLC, you need to make sure you cleanly keep everything separate. So if you're an LLC and you have a Wells Fargo account and you're running your personal spending and your business spending through your Wells Fargo account, you do not have your LLC liability protection. You need to run your revenue and your expenses all separate from your other stuff. Okay. Now, real easy, if you're an LLC, you get a corporate document from the state of North Carolina, just bring that to a bank, and then we'll set you up with a separate business account. And then you also, now, if you don't have a separate business account yet, and you don't have a separate business credit card, you can still run all your business and personal stuff separately. Now, whether or not that purely protects you as your LLC liability protection, that's an attorney question. But however, Now I've had clients say, Keith, I don't have a business credit card. I'm like, well, do you have two credit cards? Oh yeah. All right. Well, then put all your business stuff through that one credit card. At least it's all cleanly separated. Okay. Now, the next evolution will most commonly is my LLCs, or sometimes I'll see a sole prop. I'm like, you really ought to be an S. So we'll go right from sole to an S. But a lot of times they're already the LLC, and then we do an S. You will purely do an S corp, not purely, strong word. The evolution from these two to an LLC will be more for tax efficiency. Then that does flow differently through your taxes. And you do have a separate, an S corp has its own tax return. And then it flows separately. It does flow through on another line. Okay. Then your LLCs and soles. And the big difference is you pay no self-employment tax on your S. But generally, if you're at about 80,000 profit in a LLC or a sole, is when your accountants will start talking about it, because there's some extra costs you have in an S corp you don't have in an LLC and an S, and extra things you have to do. So generally, at this profit level is when they'll say it makes sense, extra cost wise and extra work wise, to get to utilize the tax efficiency you'll get and other things you get in an S. So that's my crash course on this structure. Do I have any questions on this? Really? Okay, cool. I usually do. I see one in the room. Run over 90 minutes. I thought did we change the time frame on these things? So I do apologize because I thought these used to always be 2 hours long. So I thought I had an hour and a half, Pete. So I apologize if I
think it's still scheduled for an hour, but I was Jim's goal to try to get us to shorten it up if possible, just a little bit. So,
all right, no worries. All right. Okay, C Corp, I am not as intimate with when necessarily or why will people do a C. I know with C, I know people have done C's because they want to do more for retirement, right? So you could do more stuff with like 401ks and retirement planning. Retirement. And then also I know people do C's, the retained earnings don't flow through as profit. So in an S, when I have a profit, so what happens, I keep it in the business, like I have money in savings, but it's profit. So I still pay tax on that. In a C Corp, you don't. It's retained earnings. So that's my crash. I'm not, I apologize for that. I don't see C Corps very much on the small business side. It's mostly S Corps and LLCs. But the times I see C Corps is because they can match more in the 401k. They can put more in the 401k. They can match more, and they can do more creative stuff, and they don't pay tax on retained earnings. So that's the main things I see. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. All right, perfect. All right, so I'm going to move on from this. Right here, keep it simple. Just had that conversation, right? Sole, sole up front, or if you're concerned about liability protection, do the LLC. If you're going to be really profitable right up front, just start S Corp up front. So that's that. I kind of hit this one pretty hard, so we'll move on from that. Um, government wise, just make sure that you do comply with all state and federal licensing and approvals. Comply with all labor laws, immigration laws, and this one right here is where, especially if you're an S, have a bookkeeper do that for you. There's more pitfalls, and a C also, or an S, where LLCs and sole proprietors, you're not required to do certain things every quarter as you are in an S corp or a C corp. But just make sure you're following all laws and regulations. If you're not sure, ask someone like me. The other day, a client didn't know, like every year, the state requires you in North Carolina to go on and do a financial report, which is a one-page thing where all you're doing is just saying, yes, I'm still in business. I think it's a money grab from the state. You got to pay a fee to do it, right? But just make sure you're compliant. That's why other CPAs, attorneys, people like me will help you research. Just follow all the rules, and regulations based on business owners and also your industry, right? So my industry not only got to comply with state, um, labor laws and immigration laws and IRS laws, but then I have, you know, you know, as a financial advisor, I have certain things I got to comply with, licenses and insurances I need to do to be compliant, right? So just make sure you do it all correctly. Yeah, insurance, couple things here. So just make sure if you have a property, have property insurance, liability, please make sure you have liability insurance. Even if you're an LLC, you still want to have like liability insurance, because if you are sued, you still might have some financial things you have to pay. So liability insurance will provide that resource to pay the claim, if you're sued. Motor vehicles, if you're operating a car for the business, make sure you have the proper insurance. Talk to your property and casualty person, your auto insurance. Umbrella liability, I think, talk to your PNC. I think that's kind of an overlap sometimes. If you have employees, make sure you have workers' comp. Health insurance, what are you going to do to address your health insurance? If you're married and you have a business, will you go on your spouse's plan? What is that going to cost you? If you're not married, or if you are married, same thing. Are you going to go on the affordable health, the exchanges to get individual insurance? What's that going to cost you? That gets real quirky, because if you're married and your spouse has health insurance and you're eligible for the health insurance, you then can't get a subsidy on the exchange. But there's different rules on the exchange that you might qualify for a subsidy to make it affordable. But anyway, what are you doing for health insurance? Do you have life insurance, right? If you die, what will replace your income? Then in tying to that, there's also business interruption. Like for me, we have life insurance. My business has life insurance on me. Why? Because if I die, our business succession plan is Leo is going to buy the business. Well, Leo doesn't have the resources to buy the business. So the life insurance that the business owns provides those, well, he's also an owner, partial owner, provides him the resources, the business, the resources to buy me out and give my wife money, right? The life insurance does that, right? Well, I know we have liability 3 times in here, but liability insurance again, okay? Now I'm trying to talk fast because seems like I got that kind of hint to go a little faster. So I apologize, I'm talking too fast here. We are getting close to the end of this part. Business plan basics, we've hit it. So we are getting, right? What's your idea? It's going to communicate. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm repeating myself here, right? It communicates your ideas. Yes, I'm going to want to read it, or a lender's going to want to read it, know what your plan is. It's a powerful tool, but don't go crazy. Like everything I talked about, just write it down, bullet points. Don't write big tons paragraphs. A page of who you are, what your business is, who you're serving, what you want to accomplish, and then your financials, what they look like, and then how you're going to sell to these people, how you're going to get clients, that's your marketing and sales. Okay. That's your plan. But it's important because I'm going to want to read it. The coach is going to want to read it. The bank is going to want to see it. And it gets it and write it down. Okay. That's just the table of contents. All right. Build your team. So yeah, who are you going to bank with? How do you find lawyers? Networking, people that you know, that you trust. Score has a list of uh, lawyers and accountants, actually, and insurance people, right? For as a resource in Charlotte. But you want to have, I like brokers here, people who can shop, right? But who's your insurance agent, accountant, lawyers? Just start building your team as a resource. Yeah. Whoa. Man, this thing is acting quirky. All right, and then your self-assessment. So you're going to get this deck from Score, and then Score will be the self-assessment. Just give yourself a grade, 0 to 10, scale yourself, and see where you are. So when you work with a mentor or yourself, you have an idea of where to focus your attention. All right, and then I've talked about this stuff that just repeats. And then the library. Yeah. So what's next? You'll get a survey and then work on all this stuff we talked about. Okay. All right. Bank. Any questions before I turn over to the bank? Not the bank, the library. All right. Awesome. I'm going to be around. I'm not going anywhere. Library. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. We are a bank of information here at the library. I did want to mention, I know some people don't live in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, so you may not have a Charlotte-Mecklenburg library card. If you don't and you live in North Carolina, then these resources are available through NC Live. Just check in with your public library. For people who are outside of North Carolina, I'm sure that your public library has access to some resources. So just keep in touch with your public library. If you want, you can purchase a library card with Charlotte Mecklenburg Library for $45 a year if you don't live in Mecklenburg County. But I will tell you that it's very useful to have a library card if you are in business. And we're here to fill in all those gaps for your business plan. All right. Sorry. Let's at the So, since you've already paid for your library card through your taxes, you should definitely put that payment to use. And so I'm just going to show you as an example, if you were to start maybe a pet store, how the library resources could help you with that research that you need to do. I first want to start off with a resource called ABI Inform Collection. It's a great resource to find out information specific to a specific industry. You're looking for that first research industry profile is where I'm getting some information from. And pulling up that profile lets me know that 70% of households in the US have at least one pet. So this is helping me just to support my notion, my idea that pet supply stores are needed. I can go to another resource called the Data Axle Reference Solutions, and this will give me a lot of information about businesses in general. If I go to Data Axle focusing on pet stores, I can find out that there are 269 businesses in Mecklenburg County that are already selling pet supplies. So those are my competitors. So I can see how saturated the market is in my area using Data Axle reference solutions. Also in Data Axle, you can find a heat map. So you can see where your competitors are located on a map. This really helps visualize where there might be some areas in your county where there isn't a pet store, and maybe that's the spot where you would want to build your brick and mortar business if you're going to have a brick and mortar pet store. Now, if you're looking for your customers, you can use a resource called Simply Analytics. I will let you know, for those who do not live in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area, this is a resource that our library system pays for outside of NC Live. So you may not have access to this, but a lot of this information, or some of it, is available through government websites. So you can kind of get the sense using those free census data points. But Simply Analytics is a great tool for making all of that census data look really pretty. But in this case, we're looking at a map that shows us where people are living who spend money on their pets. So the darker the area on this map means that those households in those areas are spending more money on the pets. So you know that maybe you need to set up your store here, you need to make your mailers go to these zip codes where there's darker areas, because you know these people will spend money on their pets. Also in Simply Analytics, you have different ways to look at your data. Before, we were looking at a map view. This is looking at a comparison view. And this gives us more detail about those possible consumers. We find out in 2022, people in Mecklenburg County spent almost $500 million on pets. That's quite a bit of money just for one county, I would think, for your pets. So these are just once again building your argument that it would be a good idea to have a pet supply store. So looking at those three databases, ABI Inform, Data Axle Reference Solutions, and Simply Analytics, we find out that Mecklenburg County is doing $500 million in pet supply store sales. We have 269 competitors, so stores that are already out there in your industry doing what you do. And we find out that 70% of households in the county will or do have a pet. So if we kind of do some nice math that spreads it across all of the competitors, we find out that each competitor is making $1.8 million per year. And we can see that our customers would be about a little over 1,000 households. And also using these resources, you can find out if there are businesses nearby that you might want to invite to your grand opening. So I did want to show you some comparison tools, since we saw a map in both Simply Analytics, that's what we're looking at on the left, and in Data Axle on the right, where in Data Axle, we saw our competitors and where they were located, and we compare that to the map where we saw our possible or potential customers and where they might be located. You can put those two maps together to narrow down specifically where there is high spending with low competition. If you're also in Simply Analytics, you can use information found in this database about age groups, education, housing, and language. And all of this might help determine what might be the best social media platforms for you to reach your customers. Now, once you've got all that information, found out where you want your business to be and who your customers are going to be, we also have resources at the library to figure out what you want to say. So I think Keith was talking a lot about how he promotes and how he markets. Well, if you need some facts to include in those promotional posts, you can use Master File Premier, has great articles about different industries. And so you can get some quotes from experts to give authority to any postings that you might make. You'll also be able to, with the library card, get access to local business news as well as national and international news with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library Card. And this is very useful to have. I know a lot of people don't get that paper in their mailbox at their home anymore. So having access to the local business news can be helpful. Now, once you get all of that information, you also want to make sure your skills are staying sharp. We have a few resources where you can do that, including LinkedIn Learning and Universal Class. You do need a library card in order to get access to these, but they have great tutorials to help you with areas and topics such as marketing, entrepreneurship, sales, and more. Now, I think Keith also mentioned networking. There is a resource that we have called the Gale Directory Library. It has access to the Encyclopedia of Associations, and it's a great place to find find out where a large group of like-minded people are hanging out. And so you can find associations, maybe if you are a pet supply store owner, that maybe you have a supply store that's specific for parrots. You can find out if there's an association for parrots, find out if they're going to have some type of meeting or conference, and maybe you can buy a vendor table there. It's just as an example of how the Encyclopedia of Associations might be helpful for you. If you are looking for a one-on-one appointment to get help and guidance with using these resources, you can go to the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Library's website. You can go to our calendar and you can register for a one-on-one appointment. And you can also find other business development events. If you filter on business development for our online calendar, you can find all sorts of business programs going on there. And of course, since we are a library, we do have books in different formats, audiobooks, downloadable ebooks, and e-audiobooks. We also have videos and more. And so we definitely want everyone to make use of those resources as well. So you can always search our catalogs for those types of items. And so once again, the reason for you having a library card if you're in business is to help you fill in those gaps for your business plan. We definitely want you to find all the information you need to find customers, learn more about your competitors, and in the end, to be successful. So you can find our library at cmlibrary.org, or you can give us a call at our reference line at 704-416-0101. But does anybody have any questions quickly about those resources?
Wow. So you guys really streamlined yours.
Oh, well, ours is the same presentation. We can just talk more or less. We just
Well, because they used to give a whole case study, like you went with the dog thing. That's what I'm saying. They really, that was. Anybody have any questions? All right. So, hey, Pete, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, well, we want to thank everybody for participating. I did put a link in the chat for how to request a mentor from the Charlotte SCORE chapter. And I believe we have a system of getting the slides to you. I don't actually know how that's done, but it says on the script that we will. So I'll follow up to make sure that the slides go out to each of the participants. And I don't know, Keith, if you want to put your SCORE email in the chat for anybody who might want to reach out to you to get some technical follow-up with you, but you did give a lot of content today. And I think it was very well received, very appreciated. So
Excellent. Thank you.
we want to see if there are any further questions or comments anyone wants to make. Want to thank Yolanda from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Public Library. She leads a great team of participants that help us with our programs and help our clients. So it's a fantastic partnership, and the resources are rich. I mean, it's unbelievable the resources that the library has, and also the technical support that the librarians can offer. So it's a great resource at any price.
Awesome.
All right, I see some thank yous, but nobody's got a question or a protest. I think if we're good, then we'll probably close the session out. Thank you for coming, and good luck with your businesses. Is not an easy journey. Keith and I have been seeing clients for years, but we are there with you, and we learn with you. It's a learning experience, a learning community, and it's a lot of problem solving more than anything else. And we're good to help you with that. So feel free to reach out to SCORE and the public library. We're here to help you.
Awesome.
All right, then. Well, I'm going to
Okay.
close the session out, but thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.